Okay, we're on to rule 3 of Jeremy Beguy's 12 rules about the second roll in backgammon games. And rule 3 is to hit loose in your 5 point and your 4 point. So just going through Beguy's 12 rules, uh, don't forget that with the first 3 there's an order of priority. So the first thing you should try to do is hit any blot outside your inner board. Second thing, if you can't do that, is try and play your naturals. And if you can't do either of them, you come to rule 3, which is to hit loose on our 5 and 4 point. Albert Steg kind of puts it very well. He says, basically, our opponent is trying to establish an advanced anchor on our 5 and our 4 points. So if we can hit them back, we're depriving them of that prize. And we do it at a risk that, we could be hit back and lose a lot of ground in the race. But it's worth it to fight for our 5 and our 4 point. So here's an example of what I mean. Our opponent is split with a 5 and a 4. The 4 has split to our 5 point. We can hit them with a 3 there, and we can put them in the bar, and then we'll look shortly about what's the best thing to do with the other roll, but we can split at the back, or we can bring one down from the middle. For now, the big thing is just take it that we hit, and that's the correct move. And the correct move is to come down to the midpoint. We'll explain why shortly. And it's not just our 5 point. This can happen on our 4 point is also worth the prize. So here we've rolled a 5-2. Our opponent is on our 4 point, and we can use the 2 to hit them. And then the only really safe use of the 5 that's come down to the midpoint. You could play 6-1 and double hit again. But it's just, there's no need to take such a big risk. What we've done is we've left 2 blots there for it to be hit back. And the gain from possibly slotting and making our 4 point will be lost if we're hit back. And again, Albert Steg comes into play with this, and he says, having done so well as to knock them off they're trying to make the high anchor point, and we managed to knock them off it. He calls it a common rookie mistake to try and hit a second checker on their ace point. And his reasoning is this. We're not strong enough. We only have 8 checkers in the zone, so we're not strong enough to try to blitz yet. But by playing our checker to our ace point, not only we're not able to blitz, but we're weakening our priming chances. So for that reason, instead of, when we've done the hit like that, instead of hitting from 6-1 and putting a second black checker in the bar, we're better off just bringing one down to the midpoint. And it would be a blunder to do anything else. There are 3 sub-rules. As I keep saying in all these videos, don't get intimidated by these. Again, they're fairly obvious. 3 sub-rules in this category. The first is what to do with our other checker. And there's 3, again, in order of priority here as well. And one that you're going to recognize very quickly here, if you've been going through the various videos, we're into our old friend, the double tiger. If we hit in one of our 5 and our 4 point, if we hit in one of those points, and we can use the other checker to hit in the other point, that's a good thing to do. We double tigers, but you'll note that thing, don't break your 8 points. I'll come back to that. So this is a typical double tiger move. Obviously, I think most players would naturally look to see, well, the 5 point is the priority, but I'm going to just go in the order of the numbers. So with the 2, we can hit in the 4 point. And this, what the guy's sub-rule says is this. If with the other checker, we can hit another opponent's checker, I'll go back on that. With the other roll, we can hit another of our opponent's checkers on the 5 or the 4 point, we should do it. So look, black has a checker on the 5 point, we can hit them with the 1, and we hit both checkers, and that's the right thing to do, and anything else is a blunder. It's all those, I did 4 double tiger videos, this is just double tiger in action. Here's another example. With the 3 here, we can hit black's checker on the 5 point. What do we do with the 2? Well, can we hit a checker on the 5 or the 4 point? Yes, we can. So we'll hit them on the 4 point as well. And again, that's correct. But it does say we shouldn't do this at the expense of breaking our 8 point. And when you see it in action, it's fairly obvious. I think you probably would avoid doing this. So, same situation. Our opponent is split to our 5 and our 4 point. We could hit them with the 4, playing 8-4. And we could hit them playing 8-5 and making another checker. But look at that distribution. Where black has loads of chances to hit us, and even if they don't hit us, we've much more limited capacity to make those 2 points. So for that reason, we don't do that. And the correct move here is basically, again, to 5 points is the priority. So let's hit on that, and then just we can split at the back, or it's probably the best thing to do with the 4 in that case. The second or in things in order from the priority is that if we've hit on the 5 to 4 point. With the other roll, we should play down from our midpoint. And again, you're probably used to this stage if you've been playing the opening a lot. We want to unstack, and we use the opportunity to unstack. So here's again the situation with the 4-3. We're going to hit on the 5 point, so we're going to use the 3 in the roll, play 8 to 5 and hit black on our 5 point. With the 4, well, we can't hit any other checker on our 5 or 4 point, so we come down from our midpoint with the 4, and that's the right rule. And the third and final thing to do is, if you can't do one or the other of the first two, just play from your midpoint. And you'll see I put in the slide there, we do that in this order. It is important that if you can play from your midpoint, you should. And if you can't, you play from the 24 point. And I had to go through a lot of examples to find one where this applied. In Jeremy Beguy's article, he doesn't actually give an example, so I had to try to keep working until I got one. And this is one where we've rolled a 4-1. We can hit with the 4. We can play 8 to 4, hit black's blot in our 4 point with the 4. There's nothing reasonably else we can do with the 1 without leaving absurd kind of positions down the bottom there. So we just split at the back. And so just bear that in mind. If you can play one down from the midpoint, it's always right to do so. But if you can't, you can split at the back. And here's an example where I couldn't believe that Jeremy Beguy's rules actually work, and they do. So we have a 6 and a 3. What are we going to do? Well, you know the rule by now. If we can hit in our 5 point or our 4 point, we should. So we play 8 to 5, and we're going to hit black's blot in our 5 point. What do we do with the 6? And this is it initially looked so wrong to me. Well, we can't make hit another black checker on our 5 or 4 point. So the second rule is play down from the midpoint. But when you play it down to the midpoint, it just looks so vulnerable. And if you count the shots, there's actually only 6 rolls that black can roll out of 36 the next go that they won't hit us back. So we're a massive, massive favourite to be hit back here. And I was looking at that and saying, surely to God, we should put that checker back there and play the 6 from 24 to 18. But I was watching a Mochi seminar about this, the second roll. I've mentioned this Mochi seminar before about the second roll. And he actually went to this position. He said, you think that's safer? Count the rolls. The way that the checkers are distributed here, in fact, black will hit us with 35 out of 36 rolls the next go. The only thing where black won't hit us is if they're all double 6s, because they'll stay on the bar. If they come in, they will hit us with every single other roll in the next go, which is phenomenal. So for that reason, even though it doesn't look right, you're better off coming down from the bar. I suppose taking a chance of being hit 30 times rather than 35 times, you go for the slightly lower odds. It just looks odd to me. But what appeals to me about it is this. By doing this, you're following Jeremy Beguy's rules. And Jeremy Beguy's rules, some kind of more established people who've been playing backgammon for 40 years will sniff at his rules and say, well, it's all about rules and not very principle-based and things like that. I love Jeremy Beguy's rules because I like to know that if I follow them, I'm guaranteed to be right. And in this situation, yes, his rules are always right. If you hit and your first, hit on the high anchor for black on our 5 point or 4 point, your first port of call is to bring one down from the midpoint, even if it looks as absurd as that. And as you can see, there's not much of a difference in it, but we might as well get it right. The second sub rule is it's quite straightforward, very specific, a very specific example that I don't imagine comes up very often. And this is this. If our opponent rolls a 4-3 and they play 2 forward from the back, Bill Roberti calls this the Middle Eastern opening. When you roll a 4-3, you move 2 from the back. It's not the right move at all. But imagine they do this. Sometimes at DMP, if you roll a 4-3, yes, you might roll 2 from the back. If you can, you should hit from your midpoint. You should definitely hit from your midpoint. If you in return roll a 6-2 or a 6-3, and you'll be relieved here it's only a 6-2 or a 6-3 where this applies, you hit from your midpoint rather than expose additional blots. It sounds complicated. When you see it in action, it's probably, I think it's an easy one to learn, and you might even do it naturally. So here's an example. We've rolled a 6 and a 3. Our opponent has done that. They've rolled a 4 and a 3, and they've come back up from the back with both the checkers, and we've rolled a 6 and a 3. And you look at that and think, well, I can hit. The rule says hit on our 5 or on our 4 point. I can play 8 to 5 and hit. Surely that's good. The problem is, what do you do with your 6? And again, you can bring one down, or you can roll from the back. We know that both those leave a ton of chances for black to hit us back. So instead of that, there's a better thing to do. And this is what the second sub-rule says. It's just, rather than playing the checker off the 8 point to hit black's blot, look at the checkers in the midpoint. We can use them instead. So we can play 13 to 7, and then on to the 4, hit the other blot, and we leave so much fewer shots by doing that. And it's clearly the right move. And similarly with 6-2. Again, with 6-2, I know in the heat of battle and in kind of a rushed situation, you think, happy days. Jeremy Begay says we should hit on our 5 point or our 4 point if we can. We've rolled a 2 there. Happy days. We hit the blot. Oh, but just remember the rule. Just put that back there and just think about it. In this situation, if we roll a 6-2 or a 6-3, we use the midpoint checker instead. And can we use a checker from the midpoint to hit a blot? Absolutely. We come down 13 to 7, on with the 2, and hit the blot in the 5 point instead. So you just need to be aware of that little sub rule. I don't think you need to memorize that or tattoo it in your skull or anything like that, go to massive efforts to remember it. It's just, if in the heat of battle, if you think, can I play from checker from the midpoint to hit instead, it's always going to be right. The final sub rule is just a very specific one about a 6-4, and that's if we roll a 6-4, we shouldn't hit on our 4 point. It's just one specific rule where it's wrong to hit. And here's an example here. Black has played a 4-3, as is quite normally played. We rolled a 6-4, and we could hit 8 to 4 and think we're great. But the problem is, we're going to leave a ton of shots. Because what do you do with the R6? Do we come down? It leaves loads of shots. Do we split? Leaves loads of shots. There's nothing good here. So we just don't hit. In this situation, it's just too vulnerable. If we hit, we're going to be so vulnerable to being hit back. So instead, we can, with the correct move, the best move of the lot is to run from the back, just on with the 6 and on with the 4, and hope that we don't get hit, and we've got a good, strong running game. There's nothing particularly wrong if you prefer to make your 2 point with 8 to 2 and 6 to 2. That's just as good, really. There's very little in it, but we don't hit, and it's just one to remember. The good news is, if you remember that much so far, you've done this rule. There are no substitutions and there are no exceptions. So that it's a really handy little rule that way. What I do have for you, though, is a load of test yourself questions if you want them. So we're 13 and a bit minutes into the video now. You can pause it and delete it. That's the theory done. But if you'd like to test yourself, and I'm not going to say, sometimes I say pause and assume you've unpaused. I'm just going to go through them. It's up to you to pause and unpause. I basically, in Jeremy Begay's article, he didn't have any positions for this rule, which I thought was odd. So I went into my XG mobile and just went through all the possible roles. So what follows is all the different possible roles and what's the right move and wrong move. And if you wanted to kind of test yourself move by move, if you follow the principles above, you're 100% guaranteed. This, as I said, is what I love about Jeremy Begay's rules. If you follow the rules, you're guaranteed to get 100% correct. So with that in mind, if you want to start, we'll go to the first position here. How do you play 6-3? We've talked about this already. This was Mochi's position from his seminar. And again, I'm not going to say assuming you've unpaused every time, but we're going to hit with the 8 to 5 and just bring the checker down to the midpoint is the correct thing to do. With a 5-1, what do we do? Well, we're going to hit with 6 to 5 and bring a checker down from the midpoint. With 4-1, I'm not going to go through, by the way, I'm not going through step by step each position because there's so many positions to show you. But again, you can just, if you want to, you can play with them yourselves. But think about it. How would you play a 4-1? Well, the correct move is to play 6 to 5. You wouldn't play 5 onto 1 because we're trying to make our 5-point. So if we play 6 to 5 and hit the blot in our 5-point, we don't abandon the good point by moving on to the 1-point. We leave it there. Instead, we play 13 to 9 to give us a better chance of covering, and that's the right move there. How would you play 4 to 3? Well, very similarly, you're going to hit with 8 to the 5, and then 13 you play down 13 to 9, bring an extra checker in the zone. Hopefully, you're going to cover the point in our 5-point. You don't double hit because again, you'd be moving the checker where you don't want it. How would you play 3 to 2? Well, again, we can hit on the 5-point, so 8 to 5 will hit in the 5-point and bring one down from the midpoint as extra ammunition. 2 to 1, exactly the same. Sorry, I realize I'm not giving you much time to pause here, but if you are pausing, how would you play 2 to 1 here? Well, I've said it exactly the same. You're going to play 6 to 5, hit checker on the 5-point, and then bring the 13 to 11 down with the 2 to give yourself a better chance of covering. I went through this position with all the 6s. So I just thought this was a good example of the first 3 of Jeremy Beguy's rules. This one, how would you play a 6 to 1? And the correct answer is 6 to 1 is one of what we call the natural moves. It's an obvious move of 6 to 1. You're going to make your 7-point, your bar point. So you're just going to 13 to 7, 8 to 7. How would you play your 6 and 2? And I left this in here because there's an obvious situation here. You could say, hang on, blot on our 4-point. We should play 6. We should play from 6 to 4 and hit the blot on our 4-point. Think about Jeremy Beguy's rules. And the first rule is hit any blot in your that's not in your inner board, in your outer boards. As Reichert calls it, he says any blot beyond your 6-point, higher than your 6-point. So we could play 6 to 4 here and hit black's blot, but the first priority, the first rule says hit the blots outside the board, and we can play. If you look up the top there, 6 to 2 will hit black's blot in our 16-point. So that's the correct move. We play 24 to 16 and hit. We don't hit in our home board. How would you play 6 to 3? Can we hit here? The answer is yes. We can hit here. We can come down, take the checker in our midpoint. We can play 13 to 7 and then on from 7 to 4 and hit there. So we come down 13 to 7 and on and hit. I only just demonstrated this one because sometimes you might find it a little bit hard to see. And so we hit with that. How would you play how would you play a 6-4? And if you were listening, you know that we don't hit. The 6-4 is the one number where we don't hit with 8 to 4. Instead, the better move is just the running play or the making the 2-point. How would you play 6 to 5? What would you call 6 to 5? And the answer is it's one of the naturals. Now the answer with one of the naturals is lover's leap, 24 to 13. Just run the back checker to safety in the midpoint. And then moving on to, I just thought, the reason I went through the number 6 rules so slowly was I just thought there's lots in there to kind of look at. But we then move on to the when the checker is on the 4-point. How would you play in a 5 and a 2? Well, you're going to hit with 6 to 4, knock the checker off our 4-point, and bring a checker down from the midpoint to give you extra ammunition. How would you play a 5-4 here? Well, again, you can hit there on the 4-point with 8 to 4, and then bring another checker down from the 13-point. Effectively, you're playing 13 to 4 to hit. How would you play 4-1? Well, you can pit with 8 to 4. The only available use of the 1, it's the third priority in terms of what you do with the other checker. You're going to have to play 24. You split your back checkers is all you can do. There's nothing else to do there. How would you play 4-3? Well, you're going to hit 8 to 4. You don't double hit because we want to try and make our 4-point. Instead, you bring a checker down from the midpoint, or what actually always slightly prefers you to do is bring a checker, split at the back and try and attack the blot up the back top there. How do you play 3-2? Well, again, very similarly, 6 to 4 is going to hit. 13 to 10 gives you extra ammunition in the zone. 24-21 will give you an extra chance of hitting the blot up the top. It's much of a muchness in those two plays. How would you play 2-1? Again, maybe this one you might pause and unpause. Well, you're going to hit. We know the rule. You're going to hit in our 5-point or 4-point if you can. We can hit on our 4-point with the 6 to 4. There's nothing else we can do the one except split at the back of 24 to 23. They are all the different positions. It's a slightly longer video than I'd like, but the advantage of it is those test yourself questions you've done all the hitting loose in your 5 and 4 point rules that you can possibly get. So you know them all now. And again, if you follow Jeremy Beguy's rules, I think they're very straightforward. I will shortly be coming back with. I don't know why I keep Bill Roberti's book. I am kind of going through. This is all covered in chapter 2 of Bill Roberti's book, How to Play the Opening Backgammon. But the next rule in this series, we'll be looking at the fourth rule in Jeremy Beguy's rules.